The 2023 Global Organised Crime Index has ranked South Africa 7th in the world. It points to a problem with human and drug trafficking, arms trading, cash in transit heists, and numerous other crimes. We're joined by Willem Els, who's with the Institute for Security Studies. Good evening, Willem, and thanks for your time tonight. Part of what's concerning about this report is not only that South Africa has ranked so high when it comes to the state of criminality, but really the extent to which criminal syndicates seem to have been embedded and have become embedded in our society and in our economy.
Good evening to you. Yeah, as you rightly mentioned, it is a reason for concern for us. With the 2021 crime index, South Africa was actually much better off. We dropped a few places in the world, but also in Africa. And what is also very troublesome with this indicators is, as you rightly mentioned, your mafia-style crimes that are really very rampant within South Africa. Corruption and those crimes are really very, very high in South Africa compared to, for instance, our neighboring country of Botswana and Namibia, where we rank at number 7, for instance. Now we see that Botswana comes in at number 46 in Africa and number 140 in the world. So that doesn't look good for South Africa.
When we look at some of the other countries on the continent that have ranked quite highly, we're taking a look, at least ahead of South Africa, it's the DRC and Nigeria, and then followed by South Africa. What is it, at least for you as an expert in that field, in the security field, that particularly sticks out? What is the common thread amongst these countries?
What we see in the index is that your more autocratic states have a higher criminality within them in the index, but also we see that countries in conflict also tend to have a higher criminality rating. So if we look at Nigeria, they in conflict with Boko Haram, it's unstable, and that might be one of the reasons. But we also see that criminality is very high there, but resilience towards crime is not that high. So that is not good for Nigeria. We look at the DRC. We know that in the east, in the Goma district, there's almost 200 radical groups that are fighting there. It's extremely unstable, and that contributes actually to the criminality index within that country. So South Africa ranks number 3 behind them. And then, of course, we have countries like Kenya that also rank quite high just after South Africa.
What does this say about the erosion that we've experienced as a country of our own fundamentals, including just the rule of law? Because a lot of what this report reveals is really what many South Africans would be aware of, the level of corruption that we're dealing with in both the public and private sector, and how that corruption has not only led to this mafia-style syndicates that are operating, but you're dealing with money laundering, we're dealing with illicit financial flows. These are all issues that, they've been red flags raised over these issues previously, but seemingly they've been allowed to compound over a long period of time.
Yeah, exactly. It seems we're not winning the battle against that. If you look at financial crimes, that is rated the highest of all the different indicators, the 15 that have been selected to look at. It is really high in South Africa, and those financial crimes normally goes hand in hand with corruption, with illicit money flow, with state actor involvement, with low trust in the police, law enforcement, etc., that is not doing what it is supposed to do. And that all of that also, at the end of the day, it deteriorates the trust in the public towards the government and towards the police in terms of safeguarding us against these crimes. Because these type of crimes, your financial crimes, your human trafficking, your drugs that are very, very high, your all of those type of crimes, it touches us in some way or the other. And South Africa is really suffering because of that.
Are there any silver linings as far as you can see, Willem, in this report?
Yes. On the one hand, South Africa is one of the few countries in the world that have a very high criminality index, on the criminality index, but also we rank very high on the resilience index. Now, in criminality, you want to be ranked low, and in resilience, you want to be ranked very high. South Africa is actually ranked very high in terms of that, and those indicators that they're looking at is your legal instruments that are in place, your instruments that are looking at money laundering, your instruments that are looking at criminality within the police, and how to safeguard people, etc., etc. So there, the resilience is very high. But the problem with that, once again, and that's one of the reasons why the criminality is so high, is that these instruments that are there for South Africa, these legal instruments, are not really enforced. We lack the political will to enforce those instruments, and hence the rampant criminality in our country.
Willem, lastly, just what do you think are the lessons that lawmakers, those in government, should be taking from these results, or these findings, rather?
At the one hand, there are no consequences for these as compared to what happened with the FATF grey listing in South Africa. So remember, the FATF grey listing reflects very good and very well within this crime index, and it actually verifies what has come out in the FATF assessment of South Africa. Now, what we saw with South Africa, ever since we've been greylisted, there's a concerted effort from government where they took hands with private sector and all the other departments, and they started to look at the instruments and establishing all the different instruments. They started to tighten the noose around the money laundering, to close the gates and close the doors for that. So at the end of the day, there's a demonstration that is required by FATF from our government that we started to see, and we hope that should a government pursue that and pursue to get us out of the grey listing, it will also be reflected within the crime index, where we will go down on the index then.
All right, thanks for your time. Willem Els is with the Institute for Security Studies.